Order. Roll call. Mr. Sharretts, can you do roll call for us? Here.
Gifford is not. Boy.
Here.
Lake.
Here.
And we'll have a moment of silence. Please keep the people in Florida in your thoughts. And we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item 4.1, consider approving the agenda. Do I have a motion to consider approving the agenda?
Yes. Motion to approve.
Second,
I second it.
motion was approved by Caitlin Foy and seconded by Peter Lake. It's approved. 5, public comment for agenda items only. Hearing none. Item 6.1, consider approving the minutes from September 1, 2022, meeting Parks and Rec. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second,
I second it.
motion approved by Caitlin Foy and seconded by Peter Lake. Item 7.1, Public Works update.
Thank you. So Public Works continued during the month of September to check 3 times a week, all the parks and trails, and at least 1 time a week, some of the other township properties such as the Paper Mill House and the Bartram Bridge, et cetera, which are, we consider to be parks. They're historic sites, but we consider them basically to be parks, as well as the Meadow Preserve. The bocce ball court is constructed at this point. We have put the grass seed down. We've kept it closed because we have not painted the lines on it yet. We want the grass seed to grow in before people would start using it. The horseshoe pits are essentially built. We still have to put the spike in, as well as the sand, and just finish it off, but it's essentially constructed at this point. I was wondering if this committee had any recommendations on signage that would go over there, essentially once it's fully done. So we have been looking, actually, Steve Bradley and I as well as Rich Enal over at Marple Newtown Recreation, for some bocce signage that can go up that gives what the rules are and what the game is and those kind of things. We've kind of struck out so far in finding something consistent that would be able to, we could display there, that people would see what bocce ball is, what its history is, what the rules are. So I would just ask if the 3 of you can, if you come across something that would be good to put up there to share with people, please send that along to us, because we're trying to find something that we can post. And I would guess the same thing would go with the horseshoe pits. If there's any signage, rules, those kind of things. It doesn't have to be a finished sign. It can just be verbiage. If you find, good verbiage on those things, we could have a sign made, as long as we're comfortable with what would go up there. For the time being, until the grass has gotten root, we're not opening the area. Rich Enal and Marple Newtown Recreation wasn't planning on starting to permit the bocce ball courts until next year anyway. So we're trying to let the ground be established. We're checking on the trees, making sure they're okay. And they've been doing fine so far. We will be getting some kind of a job box that'll be left over there, and predominantly for use by the leagues that would utilize it, but it could be for anybody. Again, the bocce ball courts are under sycamore trees, and they do drop leaves from time to time. So we're going to leave a battery powered leaf blower over there that could just very quickly clear that turf field and people could use it again right away. That was one of the reasons we opted against going with the clay and going with the turf, because it could be much easier to clean up if it got leaves on it.
So would that leaf blower be in the job box then?
It will,
Okay.
it will. And exactly how that's going to work, I'm not sure yet, but that's the plan, because I think in the ideal, we'll have a few sets of bocce balls available for people. And again, whether whether there's a key they get from somewhere, what the mechanism is, I'm not sure yet, but we want to have those things on site so that if people do want to go play, they can quickly do so.
George, I have a question on the signage.
Yes.
Has anyone on your crew gone to other bocce ball courts to see what those signs said?
Yeah, so Marble, I don't recall if Marble has signage, but they are completely revamping their courts over there right now. They got a grant and they also got a significant donation from a resident over there to enhance theirs. And so I don't know what the final look's going to be. I visited and saw one other one, and that's really where I got the idea for the signage. That I took pictures of it. It was a nice sign in the middle of two courts, and it just basically said, "This is where bocce ball came from. This is how it's played." And we could use that as our basis, but if we find something local that we'd like, that'd be the better situation.
Next time I ride over to Lissitor, I'll look at what, because they have a bocce court.
Oh, I did not know that.
Well, they do, but come to think of it, they don't have any signage. It's just out kind of on the other side of the tennis courts.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise people may not even know what it's for,
Right.
and we want to very specifically identify this is what it is. We actually had somebody before the turf went down. We actually had somebody who was asking about renting the pavilion, and they wanted to bring a bus in, and they said, "Can we park it on the two new bus parking spots that you just created?" So, if we weren't going to put a fence up before, we put a fence up now. So continuing with the Public Works report, fortunately, there's been no vandalism that's taken place in the last month. We still check for those things, and we have been fortunate, and nothing new has happened. We got word from the state that we did not get the grant we put in for Drexel Lodge Park, which would have included re-roofing the pavilion, rebuilding the bridge over the upper pond, or replacing the gazebo with basically a mini pavilion. It would have been like a three-sided gazebo that would have still functioned as a gazebo, but it would have been more conducive to bands and concerts and things like that. So that was a $115,000 grant we applied for. We did not get it. We're trying to keep some money in the capital budget for 2023 to at least get materials so that in-house we can make some repairs and, maybe re-roof, et cetera. The grant would have really taken it up here. It would have been perfect. We'll do it ourselves with whatever money we could put together for materials. The shades over at Brookside Park. So the third new representative reached out to me, and we've been playing a little phone tag. They sent me over. We are getting shades at Brookside Park. I promise you that. We're getting shades there. If you recall at either the last meeting or the meeting before, the second rep knew of another resource that shades can be affixed directly to the playground set. And so I said, we'd like to get a proposal for that just so that we can compare and contrast and make a decision. I finally got that proposal, but now I'm going to speak with the third person because the proposal that they sent in actually essentially covered over the entire playground set. So it was massive. I mean, it went from slide to slide and it was 18 feet wide. And I don't think that's what the intention would have been. I think the intention would have been maybe at a couple of the climbing locations to put a few small ones there, not one gigantic one covering over the whole thing. So I'm going to speak with the new person. I'll meet out there. If there's somebody from the committee that wants to join me when I meet out there, Caitlin, you met the first time. If you want to do it
Yep.
again. And again, we're not going to get the shades installed this year. We'll probably get them installed next year, but we will make sure the funds either pay for the shade this year or moved into next year so that we can do it. The Brookside Park tree planting took place a couple of weeks ago. I think it was a success. Thanks for everybody that came out and participated in it. I think it honored Park and Rec's wishes with how the trees would go in and what their function would be and not interfering with recreation. And I think they're going to accomplish that very much.
Have they all taken root?
They seem to be doing well. We've had our Dave Hilbert, the staff person, temporary staff person, checking them and making sure they're doing all right. One of the Board of Supervisors got a complaint from one neighbor who wants some of them removed because they said people used to sled on the hill. And I asked for that supervisor to have them identify what trees they're talking about, because we actually have not been cutting the grass on those hills for years. That was a Environmental Advisory Council request from a stormwater standpoint, that you create certain no-mow zones where there's running water and things like that. So I was not aware that sledding still took place because it's so forested. But I asked if those three could be identified and we could look at where they are and whether there was a way to move them to another location.
I always remember this sledding occurring, I guess it's west of where we planted those trees. Closer to the batting cage is where I thought we came down, but.
So we'll see if they get marked. We'll look at it, and then
How many trees were planted, George?
a total of 77
Over the 2-day period?
over the 2-day period. Yeah, and the majority of them are very small trees that came from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. And some of the trees, the larger ones came from the Public Works Tree Nursery, and some of the medium-sized ones also came from the Public Works Tree Nursery. So the last item for the Public Works report is just, as we're getting close to the end of the year, I always review my budget. And as I've explained before, we do have funds that are budgeted every year for your general everyday park maintenance. If something breaks, if something needs to be replaced, if I need a trash can, if I need to, repair a bench, some of those kind of things. So there is a little bit of money. There's a few $1,000s still in the park budget as I'm in October. So I throw out to this group in the park system, is there anything small that you think would be wise for us to look at? Such as, for example, are there some locations that you'd like to see some more trash cans or some more dog stations? An example is that I want to replace at Brookside Park the dog station by the tot lot. It's one of the older ones, and I want to replace it with one of the new ones. And I'm probably going to put one over on the other side over by the ball field because there's none over there, and I know people walk their dogs over there, so we should probably provide that. But if there's any other, a bench in this park would be great. A couple more trash cans in this park would be great. If there's some of those kind of moderate expenses, I would be happy to listen to what you would think.
Anyone have any thoughts? One thing my wife and I walked Ocean Trail, and I know Trails isn't under us before, but we walk Ocean Trail, and there's a long way to go between benches. If you were elderly and wanted to sit down, there's one near the end and one near the other end. There's one in between, but that's about it. One somewhere in between. Around.
Yeah, that's reasonable, and I think that's something that could be done.
I mean, that's just, I know Trails is not under us.
Well, it's a good, it's recreation and it's part of the system. And there is a Trails Committee meeting next week, and I'll bring that up to them, that it came out of Park and Rec. Could we consider some more benches? I should have the funds to be able to accomplish a couple benches along there. And I would say this, even if you don't have an idea right now, if you have a thought of something, and again, we're talking not a major expense, not something that would require levels of approval, but something that would be general maintenance, a trash can, a dog station, those kind of things. You can email me or give me a call and let me know, and I could look and see if that's something that can work. A lot of the time, I don't know until the end of the year what kind of funding we'll still have. And that is it for my report.
Item 8.1, discussion and possible action regarding Newbie Park fall cleanup event. So I reached out to DCVI, and so I think we just want to add another park to the cleanups in the spring, and this will just be a small one. So I guess there'll be 3 places for the township to pick up trash, if that's okay with the township to.
Absolutely, that's great.
Anyone else? Is that all right?
Yeah.
So Newbie Park and maybe one of the other parks?
So we normally do, we've been doing Brookside. Marty Milligan's been doing that for like 20 years or more.
That's the Darby Creek?
Yes, DCVI, yes.
Okay.
And then I think it was 2 years ago, we started Greer, yes. And that's through DCVA as well. And now Newbie is the headwaters to Darby Creek, to some of the streams that feed Darby Creek. Yes, so that should be eligible for them to get some credit, DCVA, for doing that. So that's why I thought it'd be best if we went through them. They provide gloves and bags and help us publicize it.
Drexel Lodge is, it's probably
Chester,
Chester.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's handled through
Chester Ridley Crum Watershed Association, and they're usually within a couple weeks of when the
Yes.
Darby Creek Valley Association does theirs.
2 to 3 weeks, yes.
If there's a fall and a spring cleanup then.
No,
DCVA.
it's DCVA is only going to do the spring one. I'm sorry. So we're going to end up
So
doing,
this is for spring, not fall. I'm with you.
we're going to do Brookside, Greer, and Newbie all the same day.
That'd be nice.
And it shouldn't take too many people, I wouldn't think, from Newbie, and I would think a lot of those neighbors would want to get involved right there if we just do a good job
Mhm.
publicizing it. It'll bring attention to the park as well. So item 8.2, discussion and possible action regarding bocce ball court dedication. Thanks for all of your report, George, and thanks for all the work that you guys do. It's amazing what you guys do. So the bocce ball court, we're going to dedicate it in the spring, I believe, correct? Make an official dedication.
is that done now?
So it is. Go ahead, George.
Sure. So it is completed. It's constructed. So
Okay.
at this point, the area has been grass seeded, and we're just waiting for the grass to start germinating. We had a
The
couple.
walls and the internal.
Yeah, so the structure is all built, the turf is all down. One of our public works staff, Nick, is from Italy, and he has rolled some bocce balls along it to make sure that it was rolling the way that it needed to, and nothing went the wrong way. It was all level and all that. So he said, it got his thumbs up. We still have to paint the lines on it, and there's some other things to be done. It's not going to be opened for the public until after the area is stabilized and the grass is in, and we've decided about what the entranceway might look like and if there'll be plantings and things like that. But it's built,
All right, good.
and the horseshoe pits are built. We just have to put the spikes in and the sand, but the structures are all built at this point. There's no more grading to be done. There's no more yard work, moving or anything like that to be done.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but is there signage or anything to say to let the public know that this is not completed and they should not be on this part of the park?
Right, so that is a good idea. There's no signage there currently. We'll have to get some up. Right now, there's still orange construction fence around it.
Mhm.
So if somebody goes on it, they're climbing over a fence to get to it, which I've seen already, of course, but
Probably the kids, not the adults.
Don't be so sure.
Some adults are kids.
So, in dedicating it, one of the, I don't know if we want to, but we might want to put it in someone's name, prep the front of it a little better, with some kind of a sign that, denotes the name of it, and put some more foliage in. And I was talking to George about the site. There are some shrubs there that are pretty big. They're maintenance free. They fill a lot of the space in and would create a nice little boundary from the rest of the park, and hide some of the noise that might be coming from there as well. I think a similar foliage might be a good idea. And if a dedication service, I don't know if Joe Catania has recently passed. I think it's probably within a good time frame to name it after him. We would have to go to the board with that recommendation, and they would make that decision. But it just seems like it's a really great thing that the township's done, and it's done it by itself. Not like other townships that have funds coming from everywhere. They've done this efficiently, effectively, and I think it should be named after someone from the township because of that. So I don't know if anyone wants to think of other names, and we don't have to take action tonight. But I would throw Joe Catania's name out there. He was a fan of the park and dedicated a lot of his life to this, our community.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's-
I was, maybe on the signage, whatever we decide on, there could be a thing on the bottom that just recognizes the hard work of you and your crew and when it was created.
that's kind. I mean, key is that the vision for it came from this body here. It was your idea. You pushed for it. It was Richie Nail over at Marple Newtown Recreation was thrilled that it was coming to fruition like that. So it was a real community effort. It's great. I've also been I should have mentioned, I was also very happy that soccer has been playing consistently since the bocce ball courts went in, and it did not affect them adversely in any way. I think we shimmied the goals down 5 feet in one direction, and that was it. So that, it did. I mean, the first time we made sure we moved the goals before they started lining the field, and they lined the field, and I don't think they noticed the difference.
How about that? Good.
I should also say, and I should have included this in my report, we are aiming to have the water bottle filling station installed prior to the dedication of the mural over at the restaurant building.
Wow.
So that's the intention. We've got the plumber lined up. We've got the model lined up. He says he can get it in. So if we can get it in, then if we have to tweak the painting a little bit, we can do that around it, and it'll be complete.
I'll be tweaking the mural over the next few weeks. There's some spots that need some filling in, that kind of stuff. And one of the other things is, that, we were going to paint the eaves. The high school art teacher's son was in an accident or something, so she's having some issues right now. So I don't think has time to do the eaves. So I think we'll just cancel it. If I can get up there with a ladder and put a couple of hearts on or something, I will. But for right now, it's just going to be whatever I can add between now and the dedication, which is going to be on November 9th. and the school board and the township is going to be represented there.
What day is that?
Wednesday.
No,
Do
it's
you-
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Whatever election day is.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
it's
I
Wednesday.
might be wrong. Katie.
Election
Don't-
days.
don't-
November 9th is Wednesday, maybe it's no,
I think it's the
November
8th then.
8th.
November
Oh,
8th.
8th.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah,
Do you have a time for that week?
1:30, I think it is.
And I think that the school district was asking if it could be election day because the students were off and the teachers were available to be there for it. And
It's a workshop for the art teachers who did, dedicated so much time to it so that they could go there. So I don't know that that's all approved yet, but that's what's been discussed. I just want to keep everybody informed. I guess we will have our November meeting prior to
Yeah.
that event, so
Yeah.
discuss it further there, but I just wanted to put it out there for everyone. So I guess we will discuss the bocce ball court dedication. And if anyone has any ideas of signs that, not only George brought up with the instructions on bocce courts and horseshoes and their history, but maybe a sign in front of it that's, not too expensive, but nice looking, that we could use to put Joe's name on there, whoever we might dedicate it to, or the township might dedicate it to. They see fit. The old business, item 9.1, discussion and possible action regarding the park located between Sawmill and Aspen Drive. Did you have a chance to get over there, CP?
I did. Judith and I walked through and I'm not sure it's a park. I mean, I don't know what you could do with it. I mean, I'm sure,
thank
I'm
you.
sure you could do something, but just access to it would be difficult unless. Thanks, George. You're the answer to my question.
So the access from Sawmill would be difficult, but 252, if you did it right, you could access it from 252. And Aspen Drive is a wider road, which would be great access, but that is considered green space, and we're not sure where the township's opinion is on what green space can be used for. I think we had discussed pickleball.
I'm thinking access right off of 252 might be problematic because of
For traffic?
traffic will turning into a sort of a narrow driveway off of that road.
The speed they're going to.
Yeah. I'm thinking Aspen would probably be a better entrance.
Would it be feasible for, let's say, 8 people came with 8 cars, they'd be parking on Aspen? Would that be something people living on Aspen would want to see?
I think there could be a parking lot as well as, this is going to be developed under not a, major master plan, but a smaller type master plan
Yeah.
because it's a smaller site. And I think the parking would be addressed in that master plan.
yes, and I believe, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I believe when they were looking at the Aspen property site and the definition of open space back in the 1980s, which is when that was identified as open space, it was much looser of a definition than our current definition of open space. And that is the definition that would fall under this. So my understanding is that as long as it wasn't an extravagant development of the property, you could provide for parking, you could provide for some very basic things on the Aspen property and still honor it. The Sawmill property is open for whatever we would want to consider. I would suspect that it would be at least possible that parking and entrance onto it could be considered on the Aspen side. I think it would be very difficult to do an entrance on the Sawmill side because it's so close to the intersection right there. And of course, coming off of 252, that's where the house was. But at the same time, that is a challenge.
Yes. And there is enough space in the front of the Sawmill Park to put the recreation there, have the parking on the Aspen side, and then create enough of a buffer for that neighbor behind it. It's to still fit in some pickleball courts, whatever might go there. Smaller park. Like we had discussed, natural playgrounds, inclusive sound site. Anything else that we? But I think inclusion. And
It could be just maybe a little circle of a trail and some park benches.
Mhm.
Walk your dog there. Park bench.
read a book.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and one of the, I know one of the comments that you brought up last month was about trying to get a crosswalk to go across 252,
Yes.
Right.
which would connect it to the Lissitor Trail.
Right.
And as soon as pedestrian facilities of some kind exist on that property, and whether they run along 252 or whether they run up Sawmill a little bit, as soon as a crosswalk would have something to connect to, then it would be able to be asked of PennDOT. PennDOT won't grant it if you have a crosswalk that doesn't go anywhere. But if it goes somewhere, such as this park property, you can make an argument for being able to put it in then.
Yeah, that would be good. And people, they could either stay on this property or cross to the other trail, but leave their cars, in that parking lot.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, right.
Because otherwise they're parking all the way down at the tavern and having to walk all the way up, it's not closer to, say, Meadows.
And it would also lead to neighbors from Aspen and Sawmill and that area walking to the Meadow Preserve. They would have an opportunity to walk from their house to over there.
Right,
Much
exactly,
easier.
without having to worry about crossing highway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nightmare there.
Yeah.
So fast.
I've gone, jog across there, but the light it's not a pedestrian friendly light
No.
at all. Turns very quickly.
I'm looking both ways.
Running.
So if I can recap what you have thrown out on the table so far, there was a concept that the Aspen property could be the entrance and maybe parking. There was talk about the Sawmill side being the more recreational side of it. Ideas that you talked about were a natural playground, an inclusive playground, pickleball, something as simple as a circle of a trail with some benches. I think last time it was thrown out that maybe there'd be some exercise stations or something.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Bill threw that.
Yeah, that's, I think so. So, I mean, I can include that in the considerations
Yes.
that came out of here. And then there was,
There aren't any places to do exercise in the township, right? I mean.
I think we
in the
said
parks.
Ridley Park, Ridley State Creek, but yeah, none
Oh,
around
right,
Newtown
right.
Square, I don't think.
yeah, and there are some in the Ellis Preserve properties,
right.
but I don't know if the public uses them or if it's more the businesses that are there kind of use them. And we talked about the crosswalk and the benefits of the property being an anchor for a crosswalk to go across. And then the idea of tying it into the Lissitor Trail and leading to the Meadow Preserve. Is there anything else that should be thrown into the concept idea?
Natural playground, I just think is something that's pretty popular today and
Mhm.
easy to do and reasonably priced.
Mhm.
Good. I can bring all these thoughts back.
Kind of like a berm along 252, so that
All right.
sort of sound barrier kind of, just like a hill. Something to, kind of set you apart from
It is noisy there, yeah.
The road.
I also know there's an old fence there on the 252. But for kids' protection, if we go with a natural playground, just to have it enclosed for,
All right.
Yeah.
because the kids one could break loose and go run out on 252.
Yeah, like a berm with the fence on the top of it.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe even close off that 252 entrance, because when Judith and I drove in there, I had to look in the rear view, just thinking I'm going to get rear-ended here.
Right.
They're thinking I'm probably going to go into
Yeah,
Sawmill.
exactly. You're slowing down and they don't.
Yeah, and the shoulders was not, I had to get really over.
I parked on Aspen and walked.
Oh, you did?
Walked through the forested area there.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever we go in it for maintenance, I mean, if the big trucks are there, they'll pull right in. Otherwise, if I'm going there to inspect something or looking at a tree or something like that, I always park on Aspen and walk over.
It's just safer.
Yeah.
Well, these are great ideas. This gives plenty to bring back.
So item 10, public comment. So I guess we can just throw out that the Railroad Museum, the festival was canceled, of course. Our plan is to just have the same exact festival in the spring when the Railroad Museum opens. Keep all the same people, the band's interested, the patio sale, everyone's interested. I can't remember when the railroad.
So Historic Day, Newtown Square Historic Day is always the first Saturday in June.
Yeah. But is that the official opening of the Railroad Museum? Or
It's the official opening of the Railroad Museum, but it doesn't have to be. It falls on that day, but in the past, they used to open up in May and then kind of get warmed up for the first Saturday in June. It may not be ideal to have it on exactly the same day as Historic Day, because Historic Day is about going from site to site to site to site to site.
Right, so people they won't all be at the Drexel Lodge at the same time.
Right, and I actually would probably feel bad if we successfully got everybody to stay at Drexel Lodge and they didn't go around. But there's no reason why it couldn't be earlier in May.
So one of the issues is we went a different route with advertising this time. We went through daycares and schools, and it seemed to really work. There was a lot of interest. We really got a lot of word out, and I'd like to continue that. So in order to do that, June, any time later in June would not be good because the kids are out of school. So the
Right.
daycares.
So May may be ideal.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe the
Here are the dates.
third Saturday in May or something like that. And we can talk about it further next time. I just wanted to throw it out there that we have what happened. And then Caitlin had the face painting was paid for, so we were kind of stuck with lemons, and between George and Caitlin, they made lemonade out of it with an event.
Yeah,
in-
George, thank you for connecting
Library.
with Angela,
Oh, nice.
who was amazing. And she was here in this room and,
Okay.
making sure all the kids were happy. And I brought my kids and they were thrilled to get their face painted and make crafts. And Angela's amazing. So. thank
Did
you.
they get a respectable turnout?
Yeah, we had about 45 kids.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Wow. Oh,
And I
good.
think Angela might be in talks with Vivette of Bentley Face Designs because it was so successful that she was like, we should probably do this in the winter or, plan for this again. So it turned
cool.
out very well. Lots of happy campers with painted faces and paint all over from the crafts and glue and glitter. And they had a lot of fun. And it was such a rainy day, there's no.
Oh, that's right, yeah. there's
There
nothing- yes.
wasn't much to do, so we brought it indoors and it turned out really nice.
That's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. We can make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Thanks, George, for your help with that. My gosh. So, that was it for the festival. Public comment, items for next agenda. I guess we'll add the naming, dedication of the bocce ball court. We'll keep on there. The dedication of the mural at Drexel Lodge, the possibility of the mural at Gable. What else was there? I think that's it, right?
That's it.
Oh, the bocce ball signage. I guess we just say
We can lump that in with
Yeah, bocce.
dedication, right?
bocce court dedication signage, yes.
And then any ideas go to George regarding the leftover funds, unclaimed funds.
Mhm.
Capital type expenditures, small items, benches, trash cans.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Jonathan, you didn't get to hear me. Yeah, so in our general park budget, I always have money available for repairs and things like that. If you need a bench, if you need a trash can. And as I'm heading in October, I have a few $1,000s left for those kind of expenditures. So if this group thought of some things in some of the parks that you would like to see, a trash can here, a dog station there,
This would be in the 2022 budget.
that this is right now. Yeah.
What is the plan for the recommendations that we've made for the Sawmill 252? You said you would take that to,
So I'm going to take it back to the township manager because he's the one that asked for it.
Okay.
I think the Board of Supervisors really asked him to find out what Park and Rec thought. And so I'll bring those back and he'll present them to the board.
would that, should we have that on the next agenda or maybe the next?
Well, I can provide an update as to where it stands on the next agenda. I think that's
So then-
legitimate.
Between now and then, you're going to talk to the board supervisors about that.
Yes. I will share that the Board of Supervisors has changed township engineers just very recently. So the engineer that was initially working on this is now not going to be working on it. It's the new engineer that's going to work on it. So they'll need a little bit of time to get up to speed. And this probably isn't their most important project, but we still can get this information into them and they could start letting it percolate.
Is that going to be like an official park, like our other parks, or is it more like the, other, like where the covered bridge kind of thing, where it's just township property, but it's not an official park?
So my understanding is that is to be determined as to whether it's going to be an active look at this park, or is it going to be a quiet, neighborhood find kind of thing. And that's maybe even one of the aspects of the recommendation, that if somebody has an idea, if they wanted it to be quiet or if they wanted it to be a big, once it's determined what its final composition is going to be, how much attention do you want brought to it? Because again, there are parks like Drexel Lodge that gather from near and far, and there are parks like Newbie that is much more neighborhood. And they all have their place.
So you put like trash can, imagine trash cans there, the normal.
Yes. Yeah, we would definitely put facilities there of some kind, trash cans and those kind of things.
Dog station.
Yeah, absolutely, because people will.
Oh, yeah.
We're actually weighing right now. I never wanted to put a dog station at the Paper Mill House property because I don't really want to encourage that as a destination for walking a dog and et cetera. But because of how much is being left there in like the trash can that they keep outside of the paper mill house and those kind of things, we're weighing, is it just wise to put that there? And so you need to constantly reevaluate all the properties, say, okay, does this need this? Is adding this a distraction, or is adding this an amenity that's legitimate? So yeah, I think at the Sawmill property, you would definitely have 1 or 2 dog stations. You would certainly have trash and recycling.
Benches, trail.
What about like lighting? Have like a street light?
So there are streetlights outside of it on the corner. There's nothing that points in. So there's residences right on the other side of it. There's a house that's right on the Sawmill
Yeah, you
front.
wouldn't
and then
want
there's-
something that was like shining at somebody's window.
Yeah,
I'm
and
just thinking something that, just for safety
yeah,
and for the police be able to see what's going on there at night.
I think we can look at that as a question as to whether there should be. I know the parks are dawn to dusk. And so we try never, even at Drexel Lodge, we try not to encourage people to be there beyond dusk. Although there are lights there because you've got a pavilion and that's just logical. There's been some issue that the soccer association puts temporary lights up during soccer season out here at Gable, because they then wind up using the park beyond dusk. And that is a challenge. That's one of those things that they gradually work through. But I think it's a fair question as to whether there should be lights of some kind there.
I just had a thought about if it is a fenced property eventually, I could almost see people bringing their dogs there, not to let them walk there, but to run there.
Mhm.
So that would be a dog park, which would, if little kids are afraid of dogs, it would not be a safe place.
Yeah, I mean, if it became a dog park, it probably wouldn't be used for much else.
Right. But we'd have to put signage, you have to keep your dog on a lead.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's actually the case in all of our parks. I mean, as you know, we put new signage up at all the dog stations, reminding people it needs to be on a, the dog needs to be on a leash, the dog needs to be curbed. Those signs are already up, but then we put this is what you do if you see it. You call 911, you call the police, they'll address it.
Right. And we have a sign over at Brookside that says no dogs allowed inside.
Correct.
Right. That might be something we should do if it becomes a pickleball or a natural kind of thing, dogs not allowed.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that would be important signage.
Item 12, adjournment.